Hi, welcome to another episode of Starting with Mr. K. This is topic 3, GEL. Right, so for topic 3, I'll be going through the geographical methods and investigation. Alright, and perhaps to also, this is a good revision for those who are still confused about some components of the fieldwork. Okay, so basically, I think I'll be highlighting some key things every students need to know. Okay, first of all, let's start off with topic 1.3. Topic 3.1. Right, for topic 3.1, okay, firstly, you need to know the difference between a research question versus a hypothesis. Right, so what's the difference between the two? Basically, a research question outlines a specific scope for investigation related to the topic. On the other hand, a hypothesis, it is very clear cut. It consists of one or two variables, usually two variables in our syllabus. So a research question will sound like, how does the temperature in the school field change over the course of a day? So you can see that in the research question, there will not be there isn't any conclusion yet. There isn't any known relationship yet. You're trying to find out about the relationship between the variables, and the relationships are uncertain. But on the other hand, for hypothesis, it is used when relationship between the variables are pretty clear. You just want to really confirm the hypothesis, and it is predictive in nature. And it will sound like the higher the temperature is, the more cold drinks I consume, something like that, or the more cold drinks our students consume, something like along this nature. So that is the difference between research question and hypothesis, right? And for next, we're going to talk about data. Okay, data, there are actually two types of classification. Okay, the first type of classification is between primary versus secondary. Okay, next will be quantitative versus qualitative. Alright, so these are the how data can be classified, right? And what's the difference between the primary and secondary data? Basically, for primary data, they are actually collected firsthand, and that is basically whereby you, as the investigator or geographer, will go out to collect your data. Right, for the secondary, okay, it will be from perhaps a study that's been conducted, and the data is actually available. It can be online, it can be on books, newspaper articles, journals, so on and so forth, right? So these are actually these are actually data that's already been produced, but just not by yourself, right? So this is where you do your research, right? Okay, this is where you do your research. So for quantitative and qualitative data, if we talk about quantitative data, we are looking at numbers, definitely. Okay, as literal as it sounds, we are looking at this numbers. We are looking at data that can be quantifiable. For example, your marks for geography paper. That's how I analyze them, right? So for qualitative data, it is data that are not easily measurable. They're actually usually subjective, and most of the time for qualitative data, the objective is to understand how a participant feel. So most of the time it's about emotions, feelings, and their reasoning, some of which cannot be taken, some of which data that cannot be taken away from quantitative data. So the two actually help to support each other. Alright, and then of course there is a small portion on sequencing data collection. Right, how do we sequence the data collection? Basically, there is no hard and fast rule about that. Okay, you can actually look at quantitative data followed by followed by qualitative, or the others, on the other hand, it could be qualitative data followed by quantitative data. So it really depends on the context of the GI question that you are working on, right? So that is that. Okay, third, I'll be touching on some form of limitations and risk. Okay, these component is usually missed by quite a number of students. Okay, you did not even touch on this. Okay, you do not need to spend more than 5 minutes on this page, but you need to know the limitations and the risk that's involved in a GI, because that is what every geographers will do. They will ascertain whether they are able to safely conduct the field work, or are there any limitations to their field work or not, because limitation is a very big thing. Okay, in fact, it is actually your AO3 question. Okay, in my previous video, you realize that AO3 questions, there are two types, and these limitations, we are talking about methods, right? So there are two types. Basically, for AO3, there's a hypothesis question, and there is on methods, where most of the time they'll ask about the validity of the investigation. And when we answer about the validity of a question validity of the research, we often look at how limited is the method, right? For example, we are looking at sample size. We are looking at, for example, the timing, okay, the time or duration, right? We're going to look at how many times the investigation is being carried out, in months, in weeks, or is it in even day, odd day, or is it just a week, or is it just one day of collection, so that it can actually limit the reliability of the data that's being collected, right? And for sample size, if the sample size is not big enough, it will be unreliable as well. So these are just examples. Other examples would also be whether there is whether is it, like, for example, let me think, other validity, it could be whether the data collected is useful or not, right? Useful to what? Useful always to the hypothesis. Okay, so always remember there's always limitations. Okay, and last but not least, risk. For 3.1, this is the last key concepts over here. For risk, we are talking in your books, the risk that's being indicated are false cuts, minor injuries, traffic accidents. All these are injuries, right? All these are injuries, right? And of course, you can also talk about weather conditions. Like, for example, if you were to go to a open place, all right, it will also mean that you need to be wary of the weather conditions, because there will be risk taking your interview in a thundery, showery day, right? There'll be risk involved, of course. And then you also have to look at, for example, are there any risks if you are working at, for example, near a volcano, you need to look at the seismograph of the day. You need to look at the seismo data of the day, so to predict whether will there be any volcano eruption on the day itself or not. So these are things that you can consider, and that is 3.1. And in this 3.1, you will these are all, I will consider these pre-field work. Okay, so what are things that could be tested in terms of here? Okay, I've actually numbered them out already. So they can test you research question versus hypotheses. They can test you how to come up with a hypothesis, right? They can test you to maybe come up with a research question, right? Or they may ask you what's the difference between a research question and hypothesis, right? So do look at the syllabus document, do look at some sample answers from papers, and get your practices. Secondly, for data, right, it is a very brief summary of the data that's being involved. So there is primary and secondary, and therefore they may test you what are the examples of primary data that can be collected in accordance to the context of the questions that is being given. Alright, so that could be one kind of reason. And they may, for quantitative and qualitative data, they may ask you for that context, would qualitative be better than quantitative, or vice versa. So especially for core job paper, it is really unpredictable for GI question, because you have 20 marks that's allocated to this topic only. So it's going to be tough, but trust me, just look at the question carefully, look at the GI context very carefully, most of you will get it, right? And the last but not least, possible question for limitation and risk. Okay, limitations, as I mentioned, is your AO3 6 marks question. For risk, they may ask, perhaps suggest possible risk for a certain context that is being given. Okay, if let's say, for example, it could be going to the beach to collect data, right? So what kind of risk are you exposed to? Okay, you can even say, okay, wear at least sandals, or wear at least covered shoes to go to the beach to conduct, because it can be dangerous, if you get injured or cuts, or there are any sharp objects on the beach. Alright, so that's for topic 3.1. Okay, moving on, let's go to topic 3.2. Okay, for topic 3.2, it is about the collection of primary data. Okay, we zoom into this data, right? We zoom into primary data. Okay, for topic 3.2, I just want to explain a little bit about this concept of first thing first is about sampling. Okay, sampling has been the most confusing thing in this book. In this topic, right? And a lot of you are confused about the way things are being sampled and what are the different types of sampling. Basically, okay, for sampling, you need to know that there are two types of sampling. Okay, one is probability sampling. Okay, let me write it down. The other is non-probability sampling, right? And what exactly do these two geographical terms mean? Okay, for probability sampling, okay, just remember it is random. Okay, random. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it is random. And on the other hand, for non-probability, it is non-random, right? So these how come there's a need to do a random or non-random? So when you're doing random sampling, okay, you are able to remove biases that may come from a choice made by yourself. For example, if you were to go to an MRT station, you're going to do random sampling. How are you going to do it? You have to assign random numbers to all the passengers that walk past you or that is at the MRT station, and that is not doable at all. That is not a viable method. So what would you have done? You would have used non-probable sampling, and one of the non-probable sampling method is actually called convenience sampling, right? That's what you have learned so far. Okay, so convenience sampling, okay, it is about your own convenience, how you are selected, because you have selected your sample because they are conveniently being collected, like just now that example, right? So when there is for non-probable, there is convenience sampling, right? On top of that, once you conduct your convenience sampling, okay, you may also have another layer whereby you select a sample that has the proportional makeup to the population. It can be based on age, it can be based on gender, okay, so on and so forth. And this becomes quota sampling. So your textbook explained in quite a clear manner. So yeah, alright. So this is non-probability sampling, whereby it is non-random. You don't use a random generator, you just do it at your own convenience. So the first layer is convenience sampling, right? And After you, I mean, let's use back the example just now. So at the MRT, right, you conveniently ask people to do your survey or whatnot, and after and that is one type of sampling that you can use, right? Then after which, then you realize, hey, actually, based on my population size, based on my the town has a 6:4 gender ratio, six every 60 to 40 gender ratio, and that is 60 male and to 40 females, right? And then you decided, hey, actually I want to add another layer to my sampling, and that is your second layer. And once you add that second layer, so quota sampling has the component of convenience sampling. Okay, so just to make sure you understand this. On the other hand, for random sampling, is also quite simple. Random sampling, okay, which is whereby you use a random generator, right? Random number generator, right? And that is random sampling. However, if you were to if you want to really make sure there is a proportional makeup to the population, you add in another layer whereby using your random number generator, you add in another layer of rules whereby you want certain number of males and females, or you want certain number of people from this age group. Okay, and that will become stratified. Alright, so let's be clear about these sampling methods. Okay, it will become stratified random sampling. Okay, so random sampling is a subset of stratified random sampling. It is just a layer of age and gender being added. Alright, so what type of question can come out from this component? Okay, first of all, you need to know why random, why non-random. This is usually the question being asked. Okay, why is random sampling used in that context? So for GI question, most of the questions are your AO2 questions whereby you need to use the context, right? And why do I use non-random sampling? Is there a way that I can do random sampling? If there is no way, then it will be non-random. Okay, just for everyone to take note. Then they may ask you questions like, for example, what are some limitations, okay, of using random, or what are some limitations of using non-random, right? So these can be used. These are possible questions. Okay, let's move on to another portion, okay, which are questionnaire survey. Okay, for questionnaire survey, you need to understand that there are various ways that you can do a questionnaire survey. Okay, you can use predefined responses such as yes, no, somewhat, 2 to 3 times. Okay, so that is predefined responses. Okay, that's the first type, and I don't think I need to explain that. The second type of responses we are looking at, okay, is about using different types of rating scales. Okay, rating scales, right? And what are the different types? There is the Likert scale. The Likert scales has usually there are two extremes, and usually there is about five options: excellent, above average, average, below average, extremely poor. That's the Likert scale. Okay, and then you have the frequency scale. Okay, whereby it talks about the number of occurrences, and then you have your ranking scale. Okay, whereby it talks about how the participant would like to rank the certain issues that you're looking at. So in the possible questions that comes up from this segment over here, it's about being able to develop that questions. So in your answers, when you are asked to come up with questions, okay, with questionnaire surveys, right, just remember, firstly, it is all close-ended. Okay, never come up with any open-ended unless you are doing a semi-structured interview. Second, okay, all your questions should be there should be the difference between questions. That means, let's say the question is a 4 marks question, do not just keep on using lighted scale, do not just keep on doing predefined responses. There should be a range of questions that's being used in answering the question, okay, in the paper, right? Okay, so that's that. And how else can they test you? Maybe perhaps they can test you, they can give you a certain question and you're asked to change the question, improve that question. Okay, so that's improvement to certain question. Okay, basically the rule of thumb is all questions must answer your hypothesis, right? That is the rule of thumb. If it doesn't answer the hypothesis, there is no point in that question. All right, so that's that. Okay, so that's for questionnaire survey. Another type of data that we are looking at will be mental maps. Okay, this mental map is pretty new. Okay, are you required to draw a mental map? Have you had practices? I hope you have had. All right, because for mental maps, I think it is important for you to note that mental maps can be a very good tool for data. All right, and these data, you can give your participants either a base map or a blank piece of paper. All right, and it really depends on how you want to scope your geographical investigation. It really depends on what do you want to see. Is it the route that is used to travel to school, or what is the most memorable place in that certain neighborhood, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's that. Okay, let's move on. So for topic 3.2, we'll just talk about the primary data. Okay, remember, these are primary data, things that you collect, okay, things that you actually went on to collect, right? And then next we go on to the I will say difficult part, okay, which is the processing and analyzing of data. Okay, the processing and analyzing of data, which is topic 3.3. all right, there are a few ways of doing that. Just now we talked about quantitative data. Okay, so please make sure you know your measures of frequency. Okay, if you don't know this word, please go to your guidebook and look it up. What are measures of frequency? It is nothing spectacular. It is just your count, your percentage. Okay, and then next you have the measures of central tendency. Okay, trying to find out what is the average, for example. So you have your mean, medium, and mode, right? So know all these methods. Make sure you know how to use them and how can they come out. Please know the advantage versus the disadvantage. Okay, and make sure that's the first thing. Another thing you need to know is actually your how to calculate, right? So yeah, what kind of advantage are we talking about? For example, when you use mode, when do you use mean, when do you use medium, why is mode preferred over a medium, right? So there are advantages, disadvantages in your guidebook. Please go and look at them, right? Next we talk about qualitative data. The next Q, qualitative data. Okay, for qualitative data, mostly it comes from mental maps. Okay, for mental maps, they are being analyzed in various forms. Okay, such as centering and bordering. Okay, whether what are the features centered at the center, what kind of features caught attention. So usually in a base map, okay, whatever that's in the center, okay, it is usually the center of attention, right? And why is that so? And then you have the scale of map, you have the labeling, you have the colors and legends. Okay, so these are parts of the map that you will need to analyze. Okay, perspective, okay, and orientation and other features. Okay, please go and read up on this. Okay, it is very difficult to teach you on a YouTube video, but perhaps I will concentrate on this in my last few videos for this year, right? So yeah, okay, for the next component, okay, we talk about scatter graph. Okay, for scatter graphs, okay, always remember we are looking at relationship, and there's only 3 types of relationship in the world. Positive, you good, I good. Negative, you bad, I good. Or you just don't want to have any relationship, no relationship. Alright, so what is positive? This is how it looks like. Negative, this is how, sorry, it's a straight line, sorry. And then last but not least, no relationship. Okay, so that's for scatter graph, right? So the scatter graph best fit line is only for relationship, and the the y and the x, okay, are your 2 variables as mentioned in your hypothesis, right? Yes. Okay, so please note your outliers. Okay, oh sorry, this is not outlier, outliers here. Outliers could be somewhere out of the best fit line. Okay, make sure you know that. Okay, last but not least, let's go on to presenting findings. Okay, presenting findings, I think so that is topic 3.3. For topic 3.4, just be very clear. You need to know how to construct your graphs, alright, your different graphs. Okay, there is no need for me to go through the different graphs, but basically you need to be able to fill out, for example, bar graph, pie charts, and your line graphs. Okay, these are the different type of graph that we have ever constructed. Okay, and we all usually present our data in terms of photograph, text, or even color coded quotations. Okay, do take note of this and how to do this. Okay, please make sure that there may be surprises for this. Okay, so know that. And last but not least, word cloud. Alright, so word cloud is just a simple mixture of words. Alright, I gotta go, a lesson to catch. Goodbye. Hope you enjoy this studying with Mr. K. Okay,